this video, we are going to talk about HTTP post using ASP.NET MVC in much more detail than what we have already covered as part of my previous video. We are going to see on various ways to retrieve user submitted or posted values through actions which are going to be available as part of the controller. On top of that, we are also going to look into some introductory concepts with respect to ViewData, ModelState, and posted view models. So let us start with the new project first. So in here I'm going to select Visual C# Web, and then I'm going to select ASP.NET Web Application. So in this case I can just say sample. You can just create with whatever the name you would like to have here. So I just selected sample as my project name and the solution name. So in this case I would like to go for an empty template, and I just wanted to make sure that all the MVC references are in place. So now that I have my project already created, now I can start with a new controller altogether. So in this case I'm just adding a new controller, which is going to be an empty controller for now, but the name of the controller is going to be sample01. So by default this particular controller is having an action called index, and this is going to be the first action which is going to be executed the moment we actually go to the URL sample01/index. So let us quickly add a new view for this particular action. So I just right click on this, go to add view, and then I do not want to have any layout page or a master page for this one, so just remove that and ensure that we have view in place. I mean the same name as of the action name, so you can see the view name is actually in sync with the action name here. So whenever you are returning the view, if you are not providing any value for the view here, or if you are not selecting any view, it will be searching for the view which has the same name as of the action name it is getting executed. So in this case I just wanted to go with the view name which is identical to the action. So just click add, and now you can see I have index right here. So let us first start with some message, and the moment I press F5, so we got the message here, and you can see this is nothing but the controller I was talking about, and this is nothing but the action I was talking about. So if you would like to modify this, or if you would like to have various other actions to be performed based on the URL specifications you provide, then that is the concept of routing, which will be covered in my upcoming videos. For now let us keep it simple, saying that whenever you provide the controller name and whenever you provide the action name here, it tries to execute the first get method of the same action available in the same controller. So let us make it simple in that way for now. Okay, so I have my index in this fashion, so which means this is my markup, and you can see if you switch back to this and if you go to inspect element, you are going to see the same div with this is sample message. So that is nothing but the same message I have. So let us not pay any attention to this section, which is the Visual Studio section, which is mainly used for automatic refresh and debugging and other stuff. So let us not pay attention to this section. Other than that, it should be pretty similar to what we have in the markup as of now. So let us close this. Okay, so now that we have one view and one controller in place, I would like to have some kind of values to be submitted to the server. So imagine the user is typing some information in a text box, and he would like to submit that information back to the server, process that information, and give back some results. So that is the normal behavior of any kind of web application. So in order to do that, first of all we should have some kind of input elements. Those could be text boxes or check boxes or radio buttons or something of that sort. So we need to have some one or more input elements, or say input controls, and on top of that we should always have a form tag. So whenever you would like to post some information to the server, we need a form tag. So in order to have a form tag, we can use the built-in using HTML.begin form. So I can say that I would like to use a particular form for this particular application, or say for this scenario. So in this case, let me add a span so that now that we have this, so which means a form tag will be automatically added, and within the form we are going to have an element as this. So let us try to execute and see what's going on. Okay, so there is no difference in the output, but once we see the inspect element, you are going to see this particular span is made available as part of form. And you can see ASP.NET MVC is smart enough that whenever you submit any information which is available inside this form tag, that will be automatically posted to this action of this particular controller. So if you don't specify anything, this is how it works by default. So which means a form by default goes with the post method. So if you'd like to specifically say that we would like to have a HTTP post, or say this particular post, you can still specify, and you can also specify the action and that particular controller. So in order to be more specific than whatever the values it is already taking, I can be providing first the action, the controller, and what kind of operation it has to do. So in this case, I would like to say it has to do form method.post. So if you don't specify any of this, it takes the default values what we have seen. So if you would like to override those, you can specify something similar to this. In this case, both are identical. Even if you don't provide, or if you provide in this fashion, both are same. So now that we have the form tag with the necessary action which needs to be executed based on the post which is available in that controller, we need to have that action method attributed with HTTP post. Currently, if you switch back to the controller, you have the action method, but that is get operation. So which means this will be executed whenever you type in URL and press enter, but not during the submit. So this action is not going to be executed during the submit or post. So in order to have another action for the post, I just copy and paste the same action, but I am going to specify HTTP post there. So the moment I do in this fashion, what happens is that I'm saying that this action needs to be executed whenever the request comes with post operation. This action needs to be executed whenever the request comes with the get operation. But again, for both of those operations, either with HTTP get or HTTP post, the action will be same, which means it is going to be the same action name. But there is slight problem if we define something like this. So let us try to build it and see what's going on. And now whenever I build it, it says there is already a member called index, and you are trying to define one more with the same syntax or the same signature. So you already have one method, and you are having another method with the same name or same signature, and that is not allowed as part of object-oriented principles. So for that purpose, just only for this case, I would like to have something like string dummy. I'm not going to use that, but just wanted to ensure that this is a bit different from the other. So in this case, I am saying that index is an overloaded method from the object-oriented perspective, but not from the action perspective. So from the object-oriented principle perspective, index is an overloaded method. The first one doesn't have any parameter, but the second one does have a parameter. But from the actions perspective, the post action will have this part to be executed. The get action is going to have this one to be executed. So let me build it now and see if it is successful. Now you can see it is successful as of now. So in order to post something, of course we need to have a submit operation to be done. In order to have a submit operation, I need to have a button submit. So I would like to say a button which is of type submit to be made available, and in this case I would like to give the caption as show, for example. So it could be submit as well, but I just wanted to provide something different, so I just pressed show there. And let us build this and let us execute this and see what's going on. And for our better understanding, let me put a breakpoint here and another breakpoint here. Okay, so let us try to re-execute it. Let me open the developer tools, and now I'm going to say refresh, or say I typed in all the URL and just pressed enter and see what's going on. And now you can see the moment I pressed enter, it actually went into the index action. Why? Because I asked for index action here, but it went into the get operation. It did not go into the post operation. So I just continue here, and you can see I got that particular message, which is fine. So let us switch back to network, and you are going to see you actually asked for index. You can see that sample01 index. So let us take a quick look at this one. So if you switch to headers, you are going to see that particular operation is of type get. This is very important. So whenever you type something here and press enter, you are actually doing a get request against that particular URL. And once you say get, it will be trying to find that particular action in that controller which is not provided with HTTP post, or which has been marked with get. If the respective action is not marked in any fashion, by default it is treated as a get based action. And once I have this get to be executed, the server executes the get operation. So which means this index gets executed. It is trying to retrieve a view. It is trying to figure out a view. As I did not provide any value or name of the view, it is going to find the view with the same name as of the action name, which is nothing but index. So for sample01, you can see I have index.cshtml, which is nothing but this one. So it is going to process this and gets the HTML out of it, and finally sends that HTML back to the browser, and whatever we receive to the browser is nothing but the response. So for the same network request of index, we can see the entire information, like what kind of information we are requesting, so which includes the URL and the request method and so on, and what kind of response we did get from the server. So in this case we got this whole stuff, and you can see as part of this I also have the form tag and the button and the span and everything. So this is the response we received from the server. And when we say wait, the browser received this response, browser interprets this HTML, and this is exactly what we see, thinking that this is the web page we received from the server. So this is a web page. However, instead of getting the web page directly, we actually get the HTML from the server, which is nothing but the response, and the browser's responsibility is to execute or to interpret this HTML and show the same response in the form of a web page. Okay, so now that we have this particular web page in place, let me add a couple of text boxes so that we can submit the real information. So let me modify this span in this fashion, like enter first number. So I can say input type equal to text, and then I can say ID equal to txt first number. So this is a traditional way of doing it, or say classical way. So we are actually using the direct HTML to actually have the text box to be presented. But yes, ASP.NET MVC already has several HTTP methods. We can actually go and use those particular HTML helpers in order to have the respective UI elements. For that purpose, I can just say @HTML dot, and you have all the necessary or all the default are all the what I say, simple and general controls which have been made available to make our lives simpler and easier. So in this case I can search for text box, or if you'd like to have a checkbox, I can have a checkbox. If I would like to have a drop down list, I can have that one too. And now that we have everything in place, let us add text box in this case. So I would like to say text box first number. So I have text box first number here, and I can say break tag, and now I would like to have another span and another thing like enter second number, and I would like to call this one as second number. Okay, and let us see what's going on. And now you can see the default is the get operation, and just press continue. And now we have all this information, and let me open the developer tools here for a second, and I can submit whatever the information I need. I just click show, so which means I'm not providing anything here, but I just click on show here. And now you can see this is smart enough to figure out that it is a post operation, and it tries to execute the action which is marked with post. And again it is trying to retrieve a view which is based on the same action name, and you can see it is trying to retrieve the same thing here. So just press continue, and there is no difference here. It just did a full page post back, and let us see what has happened. So this is the one, this is the request which has been sent to the server, and let us take a look at the headers. Now you can see this is actually doing a post operation. The submit does a post operation, and in this case if you come down, you have another section called form data. So this section is not going to be visible whenever you are working with get operation. This will be available if and only if you work with post. So in this case, whenever I say post, you can see that these two are actually made available here. So which means I can provide those values right in here. So if I provide values like 5 or 6, something like that, and click on show, forget about what the server is doing for now, just press continue, and let us observe the request now. So if I click on here, now you can see it is still post. However, those two values are posted in this fashion. So which means your request includes all of the input elements along with their IDs together with those values, and this whole form data is posted to the server. And once it is posted, all this information is supposed to be automatically made available as part of this action. So now the next thing is that we need to retrieve all the posted information from this particular action. So let me stop this for a second, and now let us see how we can retrieve the values which have been posted by the by the user. So the quickest way and the old classic way, and of course not a very good way to actually retrieve all those values. It's not something like not the good way, but it is not the recommended practice. But anyway, we still have the entire ASP.NET framework here as part of MVC. So which means ASP.NET MVC is built on ASP.NET framework. So we have the luxury of all of the features available in ASP.NET also being forwarded to ASP.NET MVC. So in that way, first of all, if you think about ASP.NET, we have the very good objects like request, response, session, application, cache, and so on. And all of those are objects. All those objects are also equally available in ASP.NET MVC, as because MVC executes on top of ASP.NET. So in this case, now I can say variable text first number equal to, and I can start directly with request object. So using the request object, I can say please get me txt first number. So this is still valid. Similarly, I can say variable txt second number equal to request of txt second number. Okay, and now I can actually calculate some result. So I can say variable result equal to, I would like to add or provide the sum of those two values whatever I have retrieved into result. So for that purpose I can just say integer dot parse, and I can say txt first number, so which means I'm just converting the string to integer, and then I'm going to do the same thing for txt second number. So which means I'm just adding these two, and the result or say sum is going to be available as part of result. So let us see how well this is going to work. And of course, as of now, the view is not going to be changed. It is still the same. We are not going to see the result yet. It is just being calculated. So let us press F5. I did not provide the path, so let me go with sample01 index, and you can see this is the default get request. So I don't want that anymore. I removed that. And now I just wanted to provide 7 and 8 and click show. And before even getting to this, let us see what is the value available here. Now you can see I got the value txt first number as 7, and you can see txt second number is 8, and result as 15. So we got everything, so which means all the from the request you have been able to get all the values into the respective variables and calculate the result out of it. And now the next thing is that how to send that particular result back to the view. So which means right now we are able to get all the submitted information into the action. But now I am saying that from the action I would like to send some information to the view. So the quickest and the dirty way to do that is using ViewData. So ViewData is available as part of ASP.NET MVC, for which you can provide any information in the form of key value, just similar to a session. So you can just provide the key, something like result equal to result. So you can provide any key here. So let us not confuse ourselves. I just wanted to make sure that it is something like this. So what I'm saying is that this particular value sum needs to be placed in ViewData, and this value is always accessible through the key result. And once we say ViewData, it is nothing but this whole information whatever you are putting in the ViewData is made available for the view. And once the view is retrieved, the view will have the ability to read the information which is available as part of ViewData. And once view has been processed, we are going to get the HTML out of it, and the HTML is going to be returned back. And once the request has completed, we are not going to see ViewData anymore. This is not a session. No information inside the ViewData is going to be made available for the subsequent requests. So it is only available for that particular action, not even the request. It is available only for that particular action in this case. So this ViewData is going to be made available for the view, and once this view completes its process, this ViewData is gone. It is removed from the memory. So let us make use of this particular ViewData inside our view. So our view is index CS_HTML here. So I go in here, and all I am going to do here is something like span and just say ViewData result, and yes, this is something related to MVC. This needs to be preceded with @ symbol. So the moment we say @, so which means you are actually typing Razor code. It is not HTML code anymore. It is Razor, which means ASP.NET in this case. Sorry, C# and ASP.NET MVC together. So this is the Razor syntax. So I'm using @ and then you can provide whatever the statement or C# statement you would like to provide. So in this case I'm saying that please give me the ViewData, and please retrieve the value available in the result. So let us see if this is going to work for us. and just for our convenience, let me remove this debug point. So now I would like to say 6 and 7 and click show, and now you can see I got 13. Similarly, let me consider 3 and 4 for now and click show, and now you can see I got 7. But there are certain interesting things we really need to care here. For example, if I provide some value, something like 89 and 90, of course it does add whenever I click sum. However, these values are automatically getting removed from the text boxes. So if I click show, I got the result, but those values are gone, and they're gone forever. So we are going to tackle all of these bit later. Just for now, whenever you are using this pattern, you are going to have these kind of things, like all the UI elements will be losing those particular inputs whatever the user has provided. So this is just to keep in mind whenever you are following this pattern in order to retrieve the values from the HTTP post. Okay, so this is one way using the request object. So let me comment this and let me open another. So let me remove this. Okay, instead of removing. So there is one more way to actually retrieve those particular posted values directly using form collection. So I can say form collection, and you can provide any variable here. So in this case I would like to say collection. So you can just provide any variable here. So now I can say, instead of request object, I can say collection.get, and then I can provide txt first number. Similarly, I can make use of the same collection.get in this fashion. Okay, so let me build it and execute it and test it if it is working fine. So I need to provide sample01 index. So let me do 7 and 8 and click show, and you can see I got 15, and again you can see these two are still lost. If you quickly check our particular network traffic here, the moment I provide 6 and 7, let me click show, you can see I have sample here. I am actually sending the form data using the post method for that particular controller with the default action index. If nothing is specified, the default action is index. So if you see the response back from the server, you are going to see the form again and all of that stuff, but you can see that that tiny span which is having the value 15 is exactly what you are seeing. Oh, I think there is a misinterpretation here. Let me clear everything and do once again. So I would like to say something like 78 and 12 and click show. Okay, let me click on sample now and see the response, and there we go. So now we have 90 here, which is exactly what it is showing here. So whatever the value we are seeing here is nothing but what the server is sending back. The server is sending back this entire HTML, and that is how we are seeing 90. And as part of that, you can see it has regenerated our text boxes. And while regenerating the text boxes, the value is empty, and that is the reason we do not have a value in any of those text boxes once we have submitted it. But we are going to see how to fix that later. But for now, let us understand that we have request and also the form collection ways to accomplish the same. Okay, but we did not discuss about what exactly is this form collection. So form collection is nothing but it is one particular object which holds all those particular form data whatever we have posted from the browser. So whenever you use HTTP post, all those particular form data, which includes all the key value page, whatever, all that good stuff will be automatically made available to this particular collection. So ASP.NET MVC internally creates this particular object fills that particular object with all of those keys and the respective values, and finally it executes this particular action by sending the same object which it has already created. So we take advantage of that particular collection which has been created by MVC framework, which internally has all of that stuff, and we can finally retrieve that, and we can make use of that. So we have seen two ways, like we have seen request and we have seen collection. So let us see another way. So this is okay. So let me just duplicate this in this case. Okay. So now that we know form collection and request, there is another simple way, that is I can directly say string txt first number, string txt second number, and I don't need to use these two anymore. Even this is valid. So what is going on here? So let us first ensure that this is working fine with no problems. Just press F5. Of course I forgot to provide this. I need to provide sample01 index, and I say 67 and I say 89. Let me open the developer tools for a second before clicking submit. So now I am going to click submit, and you can see I got the result. And there is one interesting thing which has happened. It is retaining the values inside the text boxes. So this is pretty big. So let us see what's going on. So I go in here, check the headers, it is still post, and we are actually submitting the form data, and that whole data is being automatically translated to the respective parameters. So you can see whenever we post it, in this case what happened was it is trying to match all these keys with the respective variable names whatever we provided here, and if there are no parameters which are matching with any of these particular keys, those will be simply left behind. There will not be any error. However, they will not be automatically populated. So if I have something like txt third number here, but I did not provide string txt third number here, it doesn't give you any error. But that value will not be picked up. It will be still made available as part of your collection or request object. But simply, as you did not provide a variable to hold that one will be gone. If you don't, even if the case, whatever you are typing here, has to match with whatever you are actually getting from here. So that is important. Not the case, the spelling especially. So all the variable name, this has to be really the same as what you are really sending from here. So in simple words, if you switch back to index, this has to be in sync with whatever you have provided here. Otherwise, it is not going to match. So let us switch back to our this one. So what does the response contain? So our response contains our sum, which is good, and on top of that we also have our text second input, and you can see text with a value 89. So you can see this value 89 is still being preserved, and if you check the first number, you can see even that value is being retained even after the post back. So let us check once again. So I guess 20 right now. I provide 20 and press show, and now I have 30. And if you take a look at this, and if you go to headers, you have both of those two values sent, and if you see the response, you got 30, and at the same time 10 and 20 are the things which are still sent back from the server. So how did it happen here? Which means it automatically could maintain the values even after the post back, but not in any of the other two cases. So how did it make? if you provide directly those particular variables, and if ASP.NET MVC could figure out that it could directly get the mapping information of those particular form posted keys to the respective variables whatever you have provided, it automatically creates an object called ModelState. So this is pretty important. So ModelState is an object which will be automatically created during the execution of a particular action, and that too during the post. So ModelState is a particular object which contains all that information where those particular keys of the posted values have been evaluated successfully by mapping the necessary variables the user has provided. So in this case, the user did not provide anything, but we are actually specifying please get from the request, please get from the collection. But in this case, we are saying that please map that particular key directly to this variable, map another key to this variable. If those successful mappings are already done, then we are going to have the model state which is going to be automatically preserving those keys and the values for all the successful mappings. So let us see what is that model state object. So let us stop here and go to our sample, and of course I need to have the sample here. Now I say 56 and 76 and click show. So we are right here, and you can see I have text first number and text second number. And let us quickly see model state. Press enter. And you can see model state is currently having 2 entries. So what is this model state? So let me open by pressing Shift F9 by going deep into model state. So you can see first of all it is nothing but a dictionary object which contains all the key value pairs for all the successful mappings of those particular form based variables which has been posted. So if you open model state further, you can see I have the keys txt first number and txt second number, and if you open the values, you can see I have the first value as 56. Sorry, this is the value. I have the first value as 56 and I have the second value as 76. So model state is a special kind of variable or say object which contains all the key value pairs of the posted values for each of the successful mappings of those particular posted keys. So what happened to our previous things? So let us stop here and let me comment this for a second, and let me uncomment this and examine the model state variable here. So let me put a breakpoint here. I don't need this anymore. Press F5, and of course I need to have sample01. So I provide 67 and 78 and click show. So I have the breakpoint automatically hit, and let us check the model state now. Let us dig deep into that and let us open it, and you can see there exists literally 0 entries inside the dictionary, and you can see keys are 0, values are 0. Why? Because it could not find mapping information, so which means it did not find user specific information, like the developer specified information in order to map the posted values. So developer did not specify please get the txt first number from the posted value and map it against another variable. That information is not available here, and that is the reason, as it could not be evaluated successfully, the model state object doesn't have any entries. But when you specify your own evaluation variables, so which means you are mapping, saying that whenever any post key is matching with this one, please put that value into this. If another key is having this value, then get the value of that particular entry into this particular variable. So if you provide this, the model state object will be automatically created, and at the same time all of the successful mappings information will be made available as part of model state. Okay, now that we understood something about model state, how does ASP.NET MVC asks the HTML or the browser to retain the values inside the text boxes, where we could not see the retaining of values by using any of these two ways. So the retainment automatically happens as because we are using the HTML helpers here. So these HTML helpers will be always checking for the model state. So if the model state has got a value, it retrieves that value and places that particular value right inside the text box, and then generate the HTML out of it, and the HTML will be returned back to the browser. So that is the beauty of HTML helpers. So if you use HTML helpers, they will have the default binding to the model state. So if the model state is available, the top priority is given to the model state, and if the value sits inside the model state for that particular key, it will be automatically retrieved from the model state and will be assigned to the text box, and finally the text box is going to be generating its own HTML which includes the value, and finally will be returned back to the browser. So when we use HTML helpers, ensure that they work hand in hand with model state. And if the model state is not available, those particular HTML helpers will be placing nulls or blank or empty values into those text boxes or drop down lists. So this is pretty important to understand. So that is a quick introduction to model state. Okay, so let us confirm that again. So I just execute it. I forgot sample, and the moment I say 78 and 89, you can see now these two will be automatically placed inside the model state, and the helpers, whenever they are trying to regenerate after the post back, so which means after the post back this entire page is going to be regenerated, because you can see you are trying to retrieve the view and re-return the view. So you are returning a new view, which means this whole HTML is going to be processed once again, and new HTML will be generated and will be returned back to the browser. So when it is getting processed again, this particular HTML helper will be checking for any of the values inside the model state. If they exist, those values will be retrieved, and after the process it generates the HTML along with the value, and finally will be returned back to the browser. So I click show, and now you can see I get 167 without really without really losing the values inside those text boxes. Okay, so now that we have some understanding about the model state, let us imagine I would like to initialize back to 0. So which means once after the execution, so which means if I click submit, I would need the value, which means the sum needs to be provided, but I would like to return back these text boxes with some default value called 0, let us consider. So if such is the case, model state is already maintaining those two values. So HTML helper in this case is automatically bound to the model state by default. So the only way we can initialize with some values is modifying the values inside the model state itself. So which means we use the model state, we retrieve the value by providing the key, we specify what value needs to be replaced for that key inside the model state, and then the HTML helper, as it is directly bound to model state, it knows how to pick the new value whatever you have provided. So to do that, the simplest way is model state. So you can say I'm accessing the model state here, dot set model value, and now I can provide something like text first number. So that is the key, and in order to provide the value, you can see it is asking for value provider results. So you need to have a new instance of value provider result to be provided, which is essentially asking for a raw value and attempted value and some culture information. So let us not dig deep for now. So all I would like to have is a default value of 0 to be replaced, and just give empty here and just give invariant culture. So that is culture info, right? So let me go with culture. So it is going to be culture info dot, I can say uh, invariant culture. So I'm not sure if something needs to be, yeah, so there we go. So it is available as part of system globalization, so we need to import that. So make sure that that is imported now, and we have that in place. So which means forget about everything whatever it says. Right now you are saying that please replace the value available in this key with 0. As simple as that. So it might be already having its own value, but what I am saying is go to model state, go to this entry with this key, forget about whatever the value you have there, make sure that this value is available. So which means this value is the one which is going to be made available and the previous value will be lost. So let us see what's going on. And of course I need to have sample here. So now I provide 67 and 78 and click show, and now you can say I got 145. As you know, our HTML helper works with model state. You can see the moment you modified only txt first number with 0, you can see the 0 is automatically made available. If you'd like to have the other one, of course we can make the other one too, but just saying something like this. So now you are saying txt second number needs to be made as part of that. So now I execute this, and of course I need to have the sample here too. And now I provide 78, 89, click show, and now you can see those two are automatically initialized with zeros after the post back. But sometimes imagine this model step in your case could be annoying. Why? Because you don't want to really preserve the values after the post back. Let us consider, if such is the case, then you can simply clear all the values available inside the model state by just saying model state.clear. So which means you are saying that please remove everything whatever is available in model state and make it empty. So even this should be working, and let us see what it does right now. So of course I go with sample 01 index, and now I provide 89 and I provide 90 and click show, and now you can see it is back to normal and it is not preserving any values after the post back. So this is pretty much about what we have for ViewData and the model state. So these two are completely different. ViewData is mainly to send some information from your action to the view if you are not using a view model. A model state, it is mainly to maintain the posted values, to maintain the preservedness after the post back, and this model state is automatically going to be used by the HTML helpers. Okay, so now that we know 3 different ways to retrieve the posted information, let us look at other ways right now. Okay, let me add a new control altogether. So let me close whatever I have in here. So let me start with a new controller. In this case, I would like to call this one as sample02, and which is going to have the same index, of course. And now I would like to have a new view to be created, and I would like to have the same layout whatever I have in here. Okay, I did not make any difference. Of course I need to have this one to be modified to sample2, as because this is sample2 related stuff. So if I submit, it has to go to the controller sample02 and work with that particular action index. So let me close this, and now let us work with sample02 controller. So we need to have HTTP post based action index. So let me start with HTTP post and action result index. So we have that stuff right here, and now we have seen form collection and we have seen various other variables for mapping the posted values directly. There is one more way to accomplish the same, that is by providing your own class. So imagine if you switch back to sample01, you provided two variables as because you are expecting only two values, but imagine there are 20 input fields, or for that matter 40 input fields. You cannot specify 40 variables here. So there should be some other way for that one. For that purpose, you can have all of those 40 properties to be made available as part of a particular class and reuse that particular class right here. So that particular class, whatever we are going to create now, is nothing but a ViewModel class which will be used exclusively for the posted information. So we can say posted ViewModels, which means ViewModels for the post operation only. So let us start a ViewModel. So I just right click here and click add and a new item. So I should have started with the class instead. So okay, let me go to the class, and now I would like to say something like sample input model. So it could be any view model or any class for that matter. So model in this case is nothing but very simple class. It's just a class which will have two properties called txt first number. Hold on, this needs to match properly. So txt first number, and I'm going to have public string txt second number. That's it. So this is a simple class which is going to have two properties called txt first number and txt second number. This txt first number should match with whatever you have specified inside your text box identification. So this should be having the same name as you provided here. Similarly, whatever you have provided here should match with whatever you have in here. So that is essential. And once you have this structure in place, all I have to do is use this sample input view model in your sample controller directly, and I can say something like input model, or for that matter let us make it simple, call it M. And of course I need to import the namespace, so let me import the namespace there. And now you can see index is just another action method which will be used only for HTTP post. However, once the user submits the post, all those particular form related data will be automatically turned into an object. ASP.NET MVC creates an instance of type sample input model and tries to match each of those properties available inside this particular class to the keys which have been posted. So if the post contains the key value pairs, each of those particular keys will be matched against each of those members available in this particular class. So ASP.NET MVC creates an object based on this particular type, and it retrieves all the keys from the posted model. If the respective keys are matching with your property names, it automatically gets the values from the posted information and assigns those values to these properties directly. And you need not do anything. All of those are automatically available if and only if the properties are matching the keys. That is important. So let us, and of course in this case I don't need to do much here, so let us copy and paste whatever I have in my previous controller. So just copy and paste the stuff, and for our clarity let us remove everything else. And in this case I don't need anything else other than using m dot. Why? Because m contains all the posted information, and right now M is literally having only two properties, and I'm accessing both of those two properties, having the sum and then getting the result out of it. So let me put a breakpoint here, and I would like to have sample2 to be executed, right? So let us press F5. So instead of sample1 now, I would like to use sample02. Press enter. So let me open my developer tools and check the network traffic on how it is going. 4556 plus press show. Okay, there we go. So we have M automatically populated. So if you check M, you can see it is of type sample input model, and if you open it, you can see those two properties are automatically having the respective values populated. How does it happen? Because those two property names, txt first number and txt second number, are matching the posted form data whatever you have sent through the post operation. So through the post operation you sent this information. So ASP.NET MVC goes through each of those keys and tries to match each of those members available inside this particular model object. If the respective properties match, those values, which are nothing but 45 and 56, are automatically assigned to the respective members, and you can make use of that particular object directly to retrieve all the stuff. This is the most and the best recommended way in order to retrieve the posted values using ASP.NET MVC. Even though the other methods are available, it makes sense sometimes whenever you to use the third way whenever you have even this is recommended sometimes, as because you might have only one particular or two properties to be actually posted. So if such is the case, even this one makes sense. But it will be overwhelming if you would like to create a new class for just one variable. So that is not really recommended, right? So whenever you have huge amount of posted information to be considered, you should always create a class and use the same class directly in your HTTP post related action as an argument, and ASP.NET MVC takes care about the rest. It retrieves all the posted values, fills the model for you, it does all that job, and it gives that model right to you, and you can do whatever the stuff you really want to do. Okay, so this is one way of doing the things. So let us refactor our sample02, or say let us refactor whatever we have now to make it much more useful or in an efficient manner, and go with the principles of ASP.NET MVC. So as we have a separate model called sample input model, we don't really need to use ViewData anymore, as because I can send this particular model directly to the view itself. So let me start a new controller altogether and start from there. So let me close all the windows. Let me start with a new controller. So I just right click and add a new controller here, and I would like to call this one as sample03. And you can see I have sample03 controller right now, which is having an index. And let me get some stuff from my previous controller. So I have that stuff, and I wanted to use sample input model. Okay, let us not use sample input model. I would like to use sample3 input model, so that it is going to work with sample03 controller. So let me copy this and rename this to sample3 input model, and so this is going to be sample3 for now. And even in my controller I'm going to use sample3, and of course I need to import my namespace. So we got everything ready. Okay, and of course I need to have a view to be created. So let me create a view for this index. So add a view, click add, and you can see I have a new view. Currently it is empty. Let me copy and paste whatever I have earlier. So I'm just cloning whatever I have in place right now, except that instead of sample02 I will be using sample3 right now. So let us ensure that it is working in the same fashion as it was supposed to. I did not make any modifications other than saying that we are going to work with sample 3 for now. So let us ensure everything is working. And you can see I have 167. And that is one more important thing. We still have the model state in place. So model state still works with this particular method, with this approach. That is using your input model. So model state is still in place. So that is pretty important. Okay, so now that we have this, so let us go to okay, we are already there in sample03 controller. Okay, so this is a bit annoying, even though they provided this view data for some flexibility, you know if we really go with the ASP.NET MVC standards, we better keep ourselves away from view data as much as possible, as because our code may not be really making sense for others who really wants to try to understand your logic. So if you are using models, try to keep everything as part of the model and use the same model in your view and get the result also in the view directly using the same model. So if you're not using models, and if there are just a couple of scenarios where you'd like to send the values or data to view, then it is recommended to use view data. In our case right now we are using model, so we already know that view works with model. So why should we use view data in between? We don't really need to. So let us get rid of this altogether. Okay, and this calculation, like this one plus this, can happen as part of the model itself. So I don't want to use, or I don't want to have the calculation to be available here. So let me get rid of this one too. So remove this and let us go to this model. So where is this one? This is sample03. So let me go there, sample input model, and now I would like to have a particular method like integer get sum, and I would like to say return the sum of txt first and txt second. Now you can see my model has got a method called getSum, and everything is encapsulated in one class. That is what it is supposed to have. So all these calculations, all these members, everything has to be happening at one location rather than distributing everywhere. Model having the data, view data doing something, controller doing something. Let us push as much as possible inside the model, right? So in this case this is simple. So there are always arguments whether do we need to include methods as part of the view models or not, but as long as they do not have heavy logic and those are only for read-only purposes, it should be fine. So let us go with that principle. So how do I use this getSum right now? So let us switch back to our index HTML. So I don't know which X. Okay, prior to that, let us come back here. So this is our controller, sample03 controller. I have M. M will be automatically having all the posted information. Now I am sending the same M to my view. So which means my particular view, which is index CS HTML here, is supposed to be receiving a model object, and that particular model object is of type sample3 input model. So I'm saying that my view has to work with this model. So in order to say that, the first thing is that you have to say something like @model, and I have to specify which model we can really work with. So in this case it is input model, so that is important. Wow. Okay, let me get this. And of course let me import the namespaces if it is asking for. Okay, So this is important. So what I'm saying is currently this particular view is going to have access to an object of type sample3 input model. Why? Because I'm already sending the same object of the same type here. So if the view has to leverage this particular object, whatever you are sending, the type of that particular object needs to be specified at the very top. So which means this whole view is going to be depending on this particular model. And once you have that in place, now in order to retrieve the values or this particular object, in order to retrieve this object directly inside the view, you can use model directly. So you have to observe M is capital here, it is uppercase, however this is lowercase. So whenever you say uppercase model, which means you are referring directly to this particular object. So this is a built-in object available as part of ASP.NET MVC, and this particular model, if you go there, if you see the data type, it is of type sample3 input model, so which is nothing but this type. So ASP.NET MVC is smart enough that whenever you specify some type here, this model will be based on the same type. And at runtime, whenever the action says please use this particular object to populate your view, this object M will be automatically assigned to this model. So whenever I say model dot, now you can see I have text first number, I have text second number, and I also have the get sum. So let us use that same thing whatever I have earlier by just writing @model dot get sum. So that is as simple as that. So let us try to execute this. So I have sample3. Okay, this is pretty important. Right now this is a get operation. Why? Because this is the first time the page is loading. So you are not posting any information. This is the first time the page is loading, and if it is the first time, you can see I don't have any object sent in our get operation. So if you are not sending any object here which is of type sample input, you can see model is going to be null. So this is important. So if this is null, you are trying to access a member from a non-existing object, and that is where I'm getting that error. So during the get operation, I don't have a model here. So the simplest way is create a dummy model and send it across. New sample3 input model. So I'm just creating an empty model, right? So just creating some empty model. So just press F5 and see if it is going to work. Of course I need to have the sample3 here, and now you can see get successfully worked, and now I can say 78, 89, click show, and now you can see I got 167 with no problems. But there is one more important thing, I lost these two values, so we need to fix this. So we'll be fixing that. Okay, so now that I have this particular value 167, we need to go back and ensure that whatever we have in here, so we are using model get sum. So this is a bit contradictory. I'm saying that please calculate get sum even though it doesn't have any value here. So right now I'm saying that I'm sending an input view model which is empty. Even though this solved our problem, this is not an efficient way to do the things. So I don't want to send this. Why? Because I don't need to create an instance unnecessarily. As I don't have values, I don't create an instance of view model. And at the same time, if you don't provide any instance there, automatically this is not going to work, as because this is empty or null. So null dot something will always give an error. So let us directly use an if statement here, and I can say whenever the model is not equal to null, then only use this particular span. So what I'm saying is this part needs to be evaluated and executed if and only if model is not null. So I can do that and see if this is going to work. Now I specify this 56 and 78 and click show, and now I have 134 in place. So everything is working perfectly with no problems. And if it is for the first GET request, even then it works with no problems. Why? Because if the model is empty or null, we are not saying that it has to do this. So let us go back to our controller for a second and see how the model state is working as of now. So let me execute this, and of course I need to have sample 01 03 here. So I provide 78 89 and I click on show. So I got the model populated automatically with the respective values, and let us quickly check what does this particular model state does. So I just press shift F9, and if you open model state, you can see the keys and the values are automatically populated. And let us check if the value is perfect. So you can see all the values are perfect here, so it is going to work with no problems. Just press continue, and now you can see it is still retaining the values, which is fine. But let us do some mischievous things here. One mischievous thing in this case, I am going to say something like txt first number equal to 0. 0 like this. And we all knew that because as you are specifying 0, and whenever we calculate m.getSum, you can see 0 into anything else becomes a 0. So let us see what is going on here. So just press execute it. Of course I need to have sample 03, and now I'm going to say 89 and say 90 and press show. Okay, so there is some difference which is happening here. So what is going on? So let me check this. Oh, sorry, it is not multiplication, it is sum. So 0 plus 90 becomes 90 no matter what. So I thought it was product. So my apologies there. So I'm having txt first number. As of now, I did not execute that, so it is 89. But at this moment, if I say m.getSum, you can see I got 179, as because you can see I have 89 plus 90, which is becoming 179, which is fine. But after this, you can see I'm doing this. So now you can see it is becoming 90, as because I have m values modified by myself. You can see text first number is 0 now, text second number is 90, which is fine. So 90 plus 0 is 90, which is also fine. But now let us check our model state. Let us open this, and let us open the values, and let us check the first value, whatever it has in there, and the raw value. It is still 89. And if you open the second value, it is still 90. So this is pretty important. So even though you modify the values inside this particular model, it will not affect model state directly. The priority is always model state if something is already there. So if I press continue now, you can see the 90 is there, but even though I specified 0 inside that model, I did not get 0 here. I'm saying that view has to work, and it is working with that particular object m. However, it is still honoring model state. So let us consider I am removing model state altogether here. So model state dot clear. So let us see how this one works. So now let us press F5 and let me go with sample 03 in this case. And now I go with 89 and press 90 and click show. Okay, so I have this, press F5 for now and see the result. Now you can see I got 0 and 90 and 90, which looks perfect. But previously it was not. So what has happened and what is it doing? So I have to take back whatever I said earlier. Not take back, I have to extend whatever I said earlier. The HTML helper, first of all, it checks whether this particular key related information is already available as part of ModelState. If it is there, ModelState is considered as top priority. It gets the value directly from the ModelState and places that value as part of the text box. If the ModelState doesn't have the value or this particular key inside it, it is going to check inside this particular sample model whatever we have sent. So which means it checks the model. So if the model has that key, that will be used directly inside the text box. So the HTML helper will have three different conditions. The first thing is that it checks model state. If the model state contains the value for this, that will be retrieved. The second thing, if the model state doesn't have it, it checks for the model object. If the model object gets that particular value or has that value, that will be used. Third condition, model state doesn't have it, model object doesn't have it. Then it goes in its own way by providing an empty string or empty value or the default value whatever you might be specifying as part of your HTML helper. So that is pretty important. HTML helper works with model state first. If the model state doesn't have the value, it checks the model object next. If the model object doesn't have the value, it goes in its own way. It executes its own stuff and it will not depend on anything else. So this is pretty important. So never consider that as you are retrieving the value here, and if you don't provide value here, thinking that you are just modifying the value available in the model and view has to honor it. Of course view will honor your object, but it will honor this object if and only if that particular model state related entries are not available. So if the model state entries are available, the top priority will be given to those entries or keys available inside the model state. So this is pretty important. This is where everyone gets confused. So model state and the model object. So this is model object and model state is what the ASP.NET MVC is going to have internally. So model state is given the top priority for each of those values the HTML helpers are going to retrieve. HTML helpers are going to retrieve the values for those particular keys from the model state first. If not, model object next. If not, it will go in its own way by providing the default values. So we have seen all the ways on how we can really get all that information from the posted values using a request object, form collection, variables, models. So there is one more last thing. Let me close with the very last thing here. So imagine I would like to extend this a bit. You can also specify something like this: sum of @model.txt first number and @model.txt second number is something like this. So this is pretty convenient. As long as you have that model object, you can always get all of those particular properties along with the execution of methods. So this is the most convenient way of accessing and working with the things. and I go with this stuff and click show. And now, of course, I actually modified that value here. So let me get rid of this guy altogether. So let me remove this. This may not make sense. In this scenario, press F5. So let me execute this. So I have 78, I have 89, and click show. And now you can see I have 78 and 89 automatically made available to the view in the form of model object. And the thing is that whenever you are working with model object directly, it will not consider model state for this expression. So this expression is purely evaluated based on the model object. Model state is not going to have any effect in this expression, but this particular expression will have the effect. Why? Because this is HTML helper for the input element, but this is not a HTML helper. It is a model object. You are working with the model object, but here you are not specifying that it has to work with model object. Why? Because that is the nature of the HTML attribute, sorry, HTML helper. So HTML helper will not directly honor model. It first checks whether those particular values are available inside the model state. If not, it goes with the model. But if you directly work with the model object, this will not have any effect on the model state, or this will not honor model state at all. Now let us refactor this bit more. We already have the text box HTML helper, and we are providing the ID, and where everything works fine as of now. HTML helper is smart enough to figure out what kind of value it needs to preserve during the post back directly from the model state or from the model object or on its own. So we also have another HTML helper with a bit of different flavor called textbox for. So I can use textbox for in place of textbox. The beauty of that one is I don't actually need to specify the ID. Then what are we going to specify? As we have the model object here, we can make use of that particular model, or say that particular type directly, by just specifying whatever you'd like to have. If you see the syntax, you see sample3 input is already available. So in the syntax, if you see dot textbox for, and of that particular for, you can see the first thing is sample3 input model. So which means if I specify any object O using the lambda syntax, and if you say O dot, you can see I am actually getting that particular instance. So I can specify something like this. So it doesn't need to be O, it could be anything else. For example, everyone will be used to write with model, so I go in this direction. So you can use in either of these two ways. So either with M or O or whatever. This is just variable, and we are using the lambda syntax here. So essentially what you are trying to do here is you are getting the model object into M, and you are saying that please find the value for this particular txt first number directly inside the model state if available, or not, go to the model and get the value. But there is one more thing. The moment you specify in this way, the ID of this text box will also be the same name as of this, and not only ID, even the name too. So this is much more preferred way if you are already binding your particular view to a particular model. So if the view is going to be bound to a particular model, this is highly recommended way to go with. So which means you are going to have all of the HTML helpers working based on your particular view, and all of your calculations and everything, even the information retrieval, everything will be happening from the model. And who is giving this model? It is directly from your particular action. So action is responsible to do whatever the processing it could do, and finally give that or hand over that particular model object to the view, which it is going to pick up using model. So in that way we have a complete ASP.NET MVC based principle oriented development, rather than we have other funny ways to do that, but this is the way to go as long as you are really falling into the patterns of ASP.NET MVC. So if I press F5 for now, and if I right click here and go to inspect element, you can see the ID is automatically taken and the name is also the same in this case. So both input fields are having the ID automatically taken based on the property you assigned here. So if your property says just first number, then it will not give txt in front. Even the input element is going to have the same property name. So that is important to understand. And again, as usual, this should work with no problems. So either I provide 78 and 89, and it should preserve the values together with providing the sum, and everything has to happen normally.